will read Candice's bio. Candice, how you doing? Oh, I can't hear you.
Great, great. Sorry, I hadn't unmuted yet.
All good. So Candice Gaddy is a continual life learner. Aren't we all? How amazing is that? I love lifelong learners. That's the best. She holds a bachelor's degree in finance, licensed certified international coach, master's in executive leadership, Six Sigma black belt, champion process certified. Okay, that's a tongue twister. I don't care what anybody says. Certified change specialist, licensed health life insurance advisor, and over 20 years of Fortune 100 corporate leadership, growing from startups to global billion-dollar businesses. After all that, God had a greater purpose and intention for her life. Suddenly, life hit, and she was flattened on her back with no corporate career and uncertain physical, mental capabilities after a postpartum stroke and brain hemorrhage with 2 toddlers at home. Later, to start a foundation to help others called I Believe organization. This began a new entrepreneurial journey with much uncertainty in parallel. At this, only to lead her to fulfill God's goal for her life. Now she is on a mission to bless even more people as an author, speaker, while being a leader in her church and community as a city council advisory member. Her 2 superhero boys, Logan and Miles, are the joys of her life, and her motto now is maximizing moments. And with that, I give you Candice Gaddy. Take it away, Candice.
Hi, guys. I am super excited to be here. What a privilege and honor. Anytime I get the opportunity to speak to others and leave an impact for the bio that she just read, I really am excited to talk about health. More importantly, to help empower someone to hopefully leave you better than you came to this workshop. And so we're going to be sharing today, obviously, the topic is healthology. As she mentioned in my bio, I have 2 beautiful superhero boys, Logan and Miles. Logan, aka Wolverine, Miles, aka Spider-Man. And so coming here from Charlotte, North Carolina, still praying for Western North Carolina as they recover from the hurricane. So super duper excited to share with you guys today. I will be concise and to the point. I believe in visuals, so I will be sharing a PowerPoint. So I'm going to share that in just one second. Do I have the ability to share my screen?
I will make that happen. Okay, co-host, there you go. Take it away.
Give me one second. All right, guys, give me one second and I'm going to change it to presentation mode for you so that you guys can see it appropriately. So today we're talking about health, and my objective is for you guys to take a step back. We've heard a lot of perspectives today about health. When you Google health, you hear a very generic definition of health. You know, the condition of being a sound body, mind, and spirit. Most people often say, you know, she is the picture of health, right? Typically, when you think of health, people look at the outer appearance, right, to determine whether a person is healthy or not. And so what we want to do today is make it personal, make it all about you. Let's learn a little bit more about you and figure out what your roadmap and plan is going to be to get you to your healthiest state. And so we're going to take a look today and talk about how do we make that relative for you. So as we look at health and look at it being relative, have you guys ever heard of the term skinny fat? It's an oxymoron, right? Well, and some people consider it an oxymoron, but the reality is that it's a true condition, right? And this just goes back to what you see on the outside is not always what's happening on the inside. And we can relate that to our businesses as well, right? Oftentimes we look at our businesses and things may be going well, things may be going wrong, but internally things could be very different, right? And so we got to make sure that the outside picture is reflective of the inside picture and making sure that we're cognizant of that. All of today is going to be all about being intentional about your health. Now, have you ever heard of the opposite oxymoron? Have you ever heard of a working vacation? I'm sure most of us are familiar with a working vacation, right? Working vacation, we usually take pride in having a working vacation, right? I know that I have plenty of times, hey, I have today off, but I still work 3 to 4 hours, right? But did you actually take that time to do what's most important to you? Sowing into your family, sowing into your friends, sowing into your community. So make sure that you're balancing this thing called life. There is no real balance. The reality is that you got to prioritize, right? So I think that Lori, as well as Jason, talked a little bit about balance today. And I learned early on in life, more recently in the last couple of years with these two boys, as a mom, it's a totally different life journey when you become a mom, because the reality is that it's no longer about you. Honestly, I think most people don't even know my name anymore. They all see me as Logan and Mal's mom, right? I don't even think most people know my name. And I've accepted that and embraced it. So now I'm really, really focused on how do I protect my health and my wholeness as well. So when you look at what is healthy for you, you have to make that definition for yourself. Now, when you look at what it means to be healthy, it's a relative term, right? So what I mean by that is if you're 15 and you're only going to live to 25, you're actually relatively young, right? And if you look at someone, I mean, relatively old, if you look at someone that's 40 and they're going to live to be 101, as Dr. George just talked about, they're relatively young, right? So the problem is that we need to prepare accordingly for ourselves, and also making sure that we have that legacy that Dr. Grant talked about, and also the exit strategy that Jason talked about earlier as well. So now we're going to take a look at my story, because my story is very relative as well. So give me 1 second here. We're going to just switch views here. So this is how it started. So she gave you a little glimpse into what we're going to talk about today in my bio. So 2018, and none of my pregnancies, just to be clear, guys, did I plan any of them? They were all surprise babies, but a blessing nonetheless. And so 2018, unexpectedly, I was pregnant. My first child was only 18 months at the time. So I had them less than 2 years apart. You can imagine having two toddlers so young. And as you can imagine, though, as soon as we heard the news, we were super duper excited. My husband was excited. We had another boy on the way. Our Miles was on the way. And so when you look at life, life is often going to throw you curveballs. The question is, what do you do with those curveballs, right? So how do you prepare for this? I look at my life journey, guys, and we talked about all the degrees and certifications and things that I had, and helping Fortune 100 companies grow, startups to billion-dollar businesses. And I thought, guys, I had checked every single box that there was to check, right? I went to school. I grew up in a single family home. My mother worked 3 jobs. So I was very aware of what the reality could look like if you don't prepare yourself. So I have been very conscious of checking every box. Everyone who knows me calls me like the Olivia Pope. I can come in and pretty much fix any situation, which is why I love helping business owners fix their businesses and realize the unrealized profits in their business, and also really focusing on that mindset. So you can imagine by the time I got to this point, even though Miles was not necessarily prepared for, I immediately began to prepare. I did all of my research. We were super excited. My number one goal was to make sure my younger son at the time, Logan, was ready. In this picture, you can see he looks really, really excited. He seemed like he was excited up until the baby actually came home. And long story short, he was not that excited because he had to go from having all the attention to splitting his attention with the little brother. And so this transition was a transition for all of us. So we all went in super excited. Now, I will give a caveat. When I had Logan initially, we had some issues. I think I was in labor for probably 48 hours with Logan, and we ultimately had to have an emergency C-section. And so this time around, because of the risk and because of my age, I think I was closer to like 36 going in 37. They recommended that I have another planned and scheduled C-section. So we knew the date, we knew the time, so we were ready. Everything was going according to plan. So we were super duper excited. All of us were. And then the reality happens, right? We all plan in life what we think things are going to be, and then we get to reality. The reality is in 2018, per the intro that Marianne gave you, sorry, my voice is going out here. I haven't actually been feeling that well myself, but I still pushed through for the last couple of days. But the reality is that I went in and I had the baby. Everything was perfect, guys. And I was home for 8 days. And I started having these headaches. And I knew that something wasn't right. And so I immediately told my mother-in-law, who was staying with me because I had the C-section, that, you know what, something isn't right. I have this horrible headache. I have a very high tolerance for pain, guys. I have numerous incidents that have happened in my life and I've overcome them, so I can handle pain relatively well. And so when this happened, I knew immediately something was off. I was breast pumping milk for my son, who was home, again, only 8 days old, multitasking, trying to be a mom to my older son at the same time. This is what we do, guys, right? We find ourselves busy and multitasking, and we see it as a good thing, right? Like we're superheroes. But is it always a good thing? The reality is that sometimes you have to make a decision of not balancing, but prioritizing. Everything may not get done today. Everything may not get done this week. But guess what? It will get done, and you'll still be here to tell the story if you choose to prioritize versus trying to do everything at once. And so in this particular scenario, I ended up telling my mother-in-law that I had a horrible headache. She had the EMS come to my house. When they got to my house, they took my blood pressure, and immediately they saw my blood pressure was extremely, extremely high. And so, which for me, my blood pressure is usually typically low. And so in this case, being that it was so high, they knew that it was abnormal. They rushed me to the closest hospital, which is probably like 15 minutes from my home. We were there for a number of hours, guys. After being there for a number of hours, the doctors came back and simply told us that I had a horrible migraine headache, and they gave me discharge papers. And my husband, before we left, I had to go to the restroom. And my husband heard me fall in the bathroom. I came out of the bathroom and I was like discombobulated. I was very confused. And he's like, Candice, tell me your name. Tell me what city you're in. He just had these little random questions like he was a doctor. And I could not articulate myself. He immediately called for the doctors, had them come back. The doctors come over, and he begged them, guys, literally begged them. Can you please run some more tests on my wife? She is an educated woman. She does not operate this way. So we need to get to the bottom of what's going on with her. Thank God that they did go in and do more tests. When they went in and did more tests, they found that I had suffered a postpartum stroke and a brain hemorrhage. I was actively bleeding, and it was so horrible, guys. They had to have me airlifted to the main hospital here in Charlotte, which is probably no longer than an additional 10, 15 minutes away. But because of the urgency, I apologize, guys, I don't go well. Because of the urgency, they immediately had me airlifted. Now, mind you, when I was in there, I was under pain medication, but I could hear everything. The doctor comes in. My mother is in there as of this point with my husband. And she says to him, there's no easy way to say it. We just have to say it. Candice is bleeding on her brain rapidly. And if we do not get her to the main hospital to have surgery immediately, we don't know what the outcome of this is going to be. Now, guys, I'm in my 30s. I checked all these boxes, right? So everything should go perfect. I didn't have abs. No, I didn't walk around in bikinis, but was I pretty healthy? Yes, I was pretty healthy. And again, I've been a planner my whole life. So I planned everything I could do to be healthy to get to this point. And now all I hear in an echo voice is, we don't know if she's going to make it. So we're going to have to airlift her. Immediately, I went into survivor mode. Survivor mode for me, everyone has their own survivor mode. You have to figure out what your survivor mode is. For me, it's my faith. So I immediately began to pray because I knew that I had another son at home that was under 2 years old that needed his mommy. And I'm like, God, please, please give me the opportunity to raise these two boys. And so I get on this plane. I can hear everything. Even though I'm sedated, I can still hear myself being placed into the plane and hear the spindle going across. And it just seems so unreal, right? You picture your life, but you never picture this being your moment. And I'm just praying to God, this can't be the way that I'm going to go out. And we went through all of this only to get to the hospital. We had a craniotomy. By this time, I have a flood of family and friends that are showing up to the hospital. The only thing that the doctor can say to them is that, honestly, we just don't know. And the last thing you want to hear is that we don't know when you told someone that your loved one is bleeding from their brain. And the rupture, guys, was so bad that they told my husband and mom that typically they would take some tissue and test it to figure out what's going on. But the rupture in my head was so horrible that they couldn't even test the tissue. And so they're waiting in this waiting room for hours, just praying that I come out alive. The doctor's very clear. We don't know whether she's going to make it, whether she's not going to make it. If she does, we don't know what state she's going to be in, if she's going to be in a vegetable state or not. We get to the point where I'm coming out of surgery, and I come out of surgery, all praise to God, that I came out fine. And after I came out of surgery, I was in the hospital for only 3 days. But this is the beginning of the journey, guys. I'm in the hospital for only 3 days in ICU, and then I'm out of the hospital completely within 7 days. And so this is just a testament to my faith and believing in myself and the community that I surrounded myself with when I hit myself against this brick wall. So after I noticed that, my life has totally pivoted. Let me tell you guys how dedicated I was to my work and my job at the time for these Fortune 100 companies. I knew that I had a report that was due at the end of the month for my CEO. I begged my sister, can you please bring me my laptop? Because I have to get this report done. Because only I can do this report, right? How many times do you feel like, we've talked about being busy today, right? How many times do you feel like, hey, if I don't get this done, it won't get done? For the mothers and wives in the room, how many times do you feel like, hey, if I don't make sure that this is done the right way, it just will not get done? Guess what, mom? If you don't fix that dinner, it's happened a couple of days. I've had a headache or whatever the reason may be that I didn't make dinner. Guess what? My husband figures it out, whether it be that he go buy something healthy or he gets something for the kids, he'll figure it out. So we have to stop putting that pressure on ourselves to feel like that we have to do and be everything, because the reality is that you don't. All of that, guys, to say that after being dismissed from the hospital, of course, it was still an uphill battle, because anytime you're recovering from a stroke, you have to go through, you have to go through therapy. And so I went through all of these therapies and really just trying to figure out exactly how am I going to progress with this new diagnosis of uncertainty that I've been given. Literally, it was all uncertainty. So I would go to my first neurologist appointment and they would basically say to me, hey, I remember the first time I went, he said to me, have you suffered a seizure? And my husband and I literally just looked at each other. And I remember I cried immediately as soon as he said it, because I told you I'm a planner, right? So immediately I'm going into, I am literally out of control right now because I don't know what could happen at any point in time. And so he says, yeah, absolutely. With the amount of brain damage that you had, you absolutely could suffer a stroke. I'm sorry, suffer a seizure. And so God forbid that that does happen, but it could happen. So of course, in my head, in my planner mind, I'm like, what else should be on this checklist of things that could potentially go wrong, right? And so now I'm trying to figure out, again, trying to be in control, the busy person of checking off all these boxes, to getting into the mode of, guess what, Candice, this isn't your fight. Just let it go and figure out what you can do today. Because sometimes, guys, that's how life is, whether it's with you, your spouse, your loved ones, your community. Sometimes only you can do what you can do. And I saw Nikki just put in the chat, sometimes fear creeps in, right? It's just the unknown, right? And as entrepreneurs, that's why I take my hat off to every entrepreneur, and I really take it to heart anytime I coach them, because I know how hard this journey is. We wake up every day and you don't know where your next check is going to come from, but you still have that mortgage due, that rent that's due, that car payment, those kids that need new outfits, that car that needs to be paid for. Your bills don't care. Your kids don't care. Only thing that matters is that you still get it done, right? So you have to have enough confidence in you to figure out what your next steps are going to be without overwhelming yourself. So as of this point now, I'm at a place where it's this uphill battle. I get back to this job, guys, that I was trying to work for on my ICU bed. And I realized immediately that I was being called into HR. I'm thinking that it is for me to go over how, I'm transitioning back to my corporate global career. And do you guys know that I was laid off of my job? I'm like, this cannot get any worse, right? How is this even possible, God, that I had to bear all of this, these kids at home, and now I am quote unquote unemployed, right? So how do I balance all of this? And so I found myself relying heavily on my faith, but also realizing that inwardly, Candice, this is on you. You can't expect anyone else to maintain you. So that's when I took on the hat of becoming an entrepreneur and a consultant to help other businesses. You'll see here in 2019, I wanted to make something positive out of my pain. And so that's where I believe organization came into fruition, because I knew that the anniversary of when all of this happened was coming up. I did not want it to be a sad day. I wanted it to be an empowering day. So we created the I Believe organization pretty much to be able to not only educate and create healthcare urgency, we also adopt families that have been affected by this. And more importantly, we want to create a sense of urgency within the healthcare community, because I am absolutely sure, had my husband not advocated for me, that I would have gone home and died. And so today, you guys see I have my Black Girl Magic shirt on in 2020. I still have it on today in 2024. So I am choosing every day. So the word that you guys should get out of this survivor mode is that it's a choice. The same thing with your health. All of this is a choice. You choose how you go about your day. You choose the choices and actions that you make. And there are a lot of stats and statistics out there, guys, that can help you better manage what's going on right there. Heart disease, guys, and strokes are one of the #1 killers here in the US. And so the question is, what are we doing to help realize what those signs are and help mitigate those risks. So, for instance, remember I told you when my husband saw me come out the bathroom, he said that I wasn't like myself. He asked me some very basic questions. And he quickly saw that based upon me being weak and having difficulty to speech, something was wrong. That's why he asked for more tests. So, guys, it is imperative that you understand the signs and symptoms of some of these crucial things, because the reality is that so many people are passing away. And that's why we said that the age is relative, because there are so many people that are passing away so young. So we just had Dr. George Grant talk a lot about living to 100 plus. Most people on average are living around 80 years on average here in the US. And that's because we're not intentional about our health. We don't understand the power that we have, and understanding the reality that no one knows your body better than you, right? So when you have these pains and aches or whatever's going on, it's your job to communicate it and let them know what it is, but also know your rights, guys. I know the rights differ state to state, but make sure that you understand what your rights are in your state. And all of them there's a federal law that is mandated that they make sure that you have the ability to be in charge of your healthcare decisions. Make sure that they're communicated and you're protected. Make sure that you get the appropriate screening for your treatments and transfer you as needed. Remember, that was a critical part of my story. Had I not been transferred over urgently to the main hospital here in Charlotte, I'm absolutely sure that I would have passed away. And so, as business owners, what can we do with this? Because we know our time is wrapping up now. Be intentional with your time. Make sure that you're minimizing your stress. Do you guys know that stress is a silent killer? I recall when I had a car accident many, many years ago, and a doctor came in and told me that if you're stressed out, your blood pressure is going to go up, which is going to cause more issues in your recovery. And so, how do we minimize that stress, guys? You have to be intentional about it. Yes, we have to eat right. Yes, we have to exercise. But as Dr. George says, there's some simple things that we can just start implementing every single day. Am I taking the time to meditate? Am I taking the time to make sure that I don't have too much on my plate? Am I pulled each direction, causing more stress on myself? If you have health insurance, obviously most of us as entrepreneurs have to get it on our own. Do we understand what that means? I'm also a licensed health insurance agent. So making sure you understand the terminology when you're choosing whichever plan that you do choose. Making sure that you get enough sleep. I feel like everyone today at some point has talked about the importance of sleep when you are focusing on your health. Making sure that you're investing in you, right? We invest in everyone else, especially as moms and as coaches and consultants. We are givers, right? It's just authentically who we are. But are we making sure we're doing that for ourselves as well? Multiple people today have talked about that mindset, right? You got to have a healthy mindset. You got to be able to connect what's going on with you, with others, and making sure that you're elevating that. Now, this part is important, guys, because that's why I assume most of you are on this call today, is because you are understanding the power of connecting with the right people and getting the right information. And then making sure that you're prioritizing your health with no excuses at all. So what is real health to Candice? For me, I just created an acronym for myself. Having experienced the alignment of living life while thriving, which means I'm growing and flourishing holistically. So we've talked about some holistic and natural approaches today to this point. And so how do you be present? How do you make sure you leverage every experience that you have for the betterment? So for me, creating my I Believe Foundation out of this pain that I've endured and experienced, you have to make sure that you're doing that for yourself, because there's always going to be something, guys. It might not be a stroke. It might not be a brain hemorrhage. It could just be high blood pressure. It could be, the kids are acting out today and I have a bad headache, right? How am I going to handle it? How am I going to mitigate that? This is one of the reasons why when I talk about aligning myself with the right people, that I love Marianne, because from the moment I met her, she has been an angel. We may not talk every day, but I know that anytime I do speak to Marianne, she's one of those people that's going to lift you up. You got to surround yourself with those people, because this life journey, guys, it's hard. It's unpredictable. More importantly, you just know that there's these up and down roller coaster. So if you don't have people that's pulling you up, especially as entrepreneurs, it's really hard to maneuver this situation. So we're going to wrap up here at the end. So this is just a before picture of me when I was a little girl. I often look at this picture. I've grown my hair back out. And the reason I love this picture now, guys, is because when I had my craniotomy surgery, they shaved my head. And I have had short hair before, but it is a different experience, guys, when you cut your hair out of a must versus, oh, I just want to be cute. This is the style I want, right? So I struggled for a long time looking at myself. And even now I can part my hair and see the scar that goes across my head. And it's a reminder, right? This is what I've been through. But guess what, Candice? You're on the other side. And now I can look at that bald head and say, this picture on the right, look at me now. My hair is back down past my shoulders. I have two healthy boys that I had to kiss and love on every single day. So life is good. It's a story, but it does not define me, right? I get to choose to define my health by being intentional with what we talked about before, choosing to maximize my moments intentionally, making sure my health is a priority so that I can be here for these healthy moments. So my takeaway for you today is make sure that you choose to define your own health and how you will do things differently today based upon where you want to be in the future. So Marianne, I'll give it back over to you because I know we're at the top of the 30-minute hour.
No, you're totally good. We've been a little behind, and that happens all the time, so no big deal. Thank you so much for that, Candice. That's a big, huge story. So Candice signed up to speak at 2 of my events, and we were trying to decipher which ones, and she's like, yeah, I don't think I have anything really to say on the healthology one. And I'm like, what do you mean you have nothing to say? Your whole story is healthology. This is what everyone needs to hear is, you know, stories like this, and Chris and Dr. Grant, and this is why we're doing this, is that there's other hope out there. It's not just about the 26, 28 pills, the pills.
Exactly.
You know, I'm not going to mention the name, but I read a caption the other day, and it said this particular pharmaceutical company had been around for quite a few, over 100 years anyways. It was for a very long time. But they've never cured any disease, which I think is interesting. And, you know, now you've sort of completed your talk, although all the talks are going to just fit right in here. We're going to talk about supplements and some of the amazing results that we've had. There's so many different ways of doing healing. I mean, this is why I went in for my doctoral, and I love it. I love that there are 27,000 other ways of dealing with illness. And, you know, we were talking about diabetes. It's such a killer, and like stroke, like, gosh, once upon a time, stroke was the end, you know, heart attack was the end basically of your life. Diabetes too made for a very difficult life, maybe not the immediate end, but you know, if you didn't clean up what you were eating and you didn't know that's what it was, and you didn't know that you weren't supposed to be eating that much sugar, right? Like, it's just, there's so many different things that we can do to help us. So I love that you shared that with us. Thank you so much for letting all of these people that are going to hear this story, letting them into, you know, a little bit of your life. So thank you so much for that, Candice. I know you have a busy day. I super appreciate you being here. Please stay with us if you can. If not, I thoroughly understand. This is amazing. I love hearing stories like this. This is why I do this. Like, I just love this, right? This is why we do it. Not just for business reasons, but also to help everyone. And so it's absolutely amazing. I love hearing stories like that. So thank you again so much for getting so personal and sharing with us.